This video is the last in a series of 3 covering the Feud of the Faithful and Starward Gaze questlines. Previously, we examined a Vital Strike Forester build and identified its optimal quest route. In this video, we will look at a Wildland Shaman build and likewise determine which quest path best suits it. The early progression shown here, shared across most variants of the full merged angel build, works well for a full solo run, a partial solo run, or a standard playthrough with a full party from start to finish. It's a solid and straightforward build. The generalist nature of Wildland Shaman, which makes solo play possible, also makes it good for a semi-blind regular run. It can independently cover most key roles, giving you the freedom to experiment with and rotate companions as you like. The subclass also works well as a mercenary support character, though I will build it somewhat differently from what's shown here. In many respects, it's the opposite of the Forester build, which is niche, gimmicky, and deliberately exploitive. This build, or rather class, we don't do anything special, packs a lot into a single character. We get spells from Shaman, alongside the Battle Spirit for strong combat buffs, an animal companion for tanking and later mounted combat, and a protective luck plus charmed combination to make our over-leveled companion nearly unhittable. Unlike the Forester, it engages enemies head-on. There are a couple options when it comes to sub-race and background. In a full party, I would recommend the standard half-orc with the usual big pocket background. However, since we are playing solo and dumping intelligence, skill points become an issue. Human Raised helps here by granting an extra skill point per level. The downside is that we lose orc weapon familiarity, while Shaman lacks Martial weapon proficiency. To compensate, we need to pick a background that grants proficiency with our weapon of choice. In this case, I went with Lumberjack for Great Axe proficiency. For the Animal Companion archetype, the meta choice would probably be a Bully. I instead chose Daredevil for the level mind flanking unity. This choice makes the most sense if we are playing largely solo and relying on the companion to main tank all the way through to Strike from the Sky or beyond. Here is my attempt to categorize the more relevant features, though quite a few things are missing, most notably the offense of a riding top, which matters for trips. In general, this build's progression is less front-loaded than the Foresters, and we have fewer death levels, and our power increases more steadily throughout. It also helps that our animal companion scales alongside us. Because the build relies more on hitting armor class breakpoints than on gimmicky tactics, even something as simple as the natural armor gained through level progression matters a great deal. Still, not all levels are equal, far from it. Our main power spike comes at level 7. This is when the riding dog grows from medium to large, allowing us to actually ride it. And that dramatically improves both the main character's survivability and mobility. Level 7 also brings several other strong upgrades, including Outflank and a level 4 spell slot, translating to 1 use of Divine Power per rest. That said, level 6 matters quite a lot as well. We gain an extra +2 natural armor and an upgraded bark skin for a total +3 extra armor class on our dog, while power attack improves from +3 to +6 damage on the main character. And we also gain Wandering Hex, which we can use to get fortune. So how does all of this affect the route we take? Since we skipped both the Atelier and the Tower of Estroth in this playthrough, we arrive at the Market Square only halfway to level 5. Our immediate goal is to reach level 7 with a secondary objective of getting to level 6 as quickly and safely as possible. In my previous video, I mentioned that the peaceful route is the easiest and safest way to complete Feud of the Faithful. However, that is not necessarily the same as the easiest route to level 6. For that, killing Ilkes and finishing Starward Gaze is actually better. Ilkes is an easier fight than the Market Square encounters we would otherwise need to clear for that missing bit of experience. In fact, we are going to avoid fighting almost entirely until that point. Yes, I've already spoiled the decision. For an easy level 6 and a fast route to level 7, we are going with the kill Ramien route. This also avoids fighting Hulrun. He's a tough enemy to take head on. Last video, I mentioned that there is one mandatory fight between the Market Square entrance and the debris bridge. In fact, this fight can be skipped. It is easier with an invisibility potion, but as you can see, it is perfectly possible without one. You may also notice that we're leaving Kailasa to the side for now. We do not need her for level 6, so we'll return to her later. Once past the debris bridge, we lure the insects towards the Crusaders by the tower, just as before. Then we arrive at Hulrun and Ramien arguing. As mentioned previously, mentioned in the last video, if we want the option to convince Hulrun later, we must choose the Show Light of Heaven dialogue option. Next, we head towards Ramien. On the way, we once again stop by the trapped Thieflings. Since this main character has a low trickery score, we invite them to join us for the Grey Garrison assault. With everything we have skipped, this only gets us to level 5. When we reach Ramien, we overhear a message from a literal demon directed at the Desnan adepts. Before speaking to him, we position our dog near where Ilkes will appear in advance. We also drink a potion of Enlarged Person. This will prevent Ilkes from targeting the main character. Other buffs are unnecessary. Now, as a law-abiding citizen, one might be tempted to pick the lawful option and immediately kill the traitorous Ramien. Unfortunately, doing so fills the very questline that lets us properly deal with these demon conspirators. So we'll need to be patient. Instead, we ask about the feud and wait for the co-conspirator to reveal himself. A small bug here, by the way. This dialogue option should be marked lawful. At this point, I wanted to showcase Ilkes' attack bonus versus my dog's armor class, but he was too busy provoking attacks of opportunity on himself by repeatedly casting useless spells instead of attacking. His attack bonus in combat is 7. This is not a difficult fight. Once Ilkes is dealt with, we head back to Hulrun. It is very important not to speak to Ramien again before doing so. Otherwise, we miss out on the partial peaceful resolution experience. We report Ilkes' death and convince Hulrun to spare Ramien. And just like that, we hit level 6. Now I want to pause for a moment and point something out. Before reaching the market square, the only quest we completed in Act 1 was Stolen Wood, which requires no combat, aside from possible ambushes. Then inside the market square, we have avoided every fight except the Ilkes, and yet we are level 6. Potentially the only combat this character has seen so far in Act 1 is against this one Desnan weakling. Now, this particular build is already fairly strong before level 6, but just think about what this opens up for Sono theory crafting when you realize you can reach level 6 with almost no combat. One such build would be the Greater Vital Strike variant of this one, as its levels 4 and 5 are noticeably weaker. I very nearly wintered it for the video, but I ultimately think this version is better overall. Plus, we just did the Vital Strike build. Ramien has a handful of spells he will cast at the start of combat. Serenity, Constricting Coils, Archon's Aura, Shield of Faith, Shield of Dawn, and Prayer. If there is only one target, he opens with Constricting Coils. Against multiple, he opens with Serenity. The easiest way to deal with this is simply to bait out the spells. I move in with both characters, so he chooses Serenity rather than Constricting Coils. Wait for him to cast the spells, and then simply disengage. At that point, we just wait for Serenity and his buffs to expire. While waiting, I lure some enemies towards the categorised Crusaders to make better use of the time. The unbuffed armor class of our level 6 riding dog is high enough that I've no real concerns about irregular ranged enemies hitting him. Spellcasters are more dangerous, since they target touch, armor class, or saving throws instead. Because the dog is so tanky, I actually use it to tank for our Crusader friend. As you can see, the main character is completely unnecessary here. Bringing them in would only risk an enemy retargeting and killing them. One of the groups we lure does include a spellcaster, but this absolute hero of a dredge takes care of her for us. Anyway, let's return to our main character near Ramien. One tool we unlock at level 6 is Wandering Hex, an extremely strong and flexible ability. For now, we'll use it to get fortune. Our additional spell slots, however, will only become available after our next rest. Let's check Ramien's buffs. They're almost expired. Now we buff up ourselves, making use of the Extend Rod as well. Notably, we deliberately avoid using it on an enlarged person. The reason for that will become clear shortly. Keep in mind that Ramien still has constricting coils available. One simple way to deal with this is to bait it out using a summon. I prepared 2 summons here. Only one is actually necessary. The second one is just insurance in case something goes wrong. So we summon, keep our distance and wait. Ramien promptly wastes his very powerful crowd control and damage spell on a summoned might. At that point, we can safely move in ourselves. The fight is very straightforward. Without his offensive spells and buffs, Ramien is fairly weak. And he also wastes actions casting healing spells instead of attacking us. While we are mid-fight, this is also a good opportunity to check our riding dogs in combat armor class. As you can see, it's quite solid. This also doesn't include all the potential potions we could drink, like Mage Armor, Shift of Hate, or even Cat's Grace. With Ramien dead, we return to Hulrun to report back and complete Feud of the Faithful. And with that, both quests are finished. That was quick. We are still a little short of level 7 though. Heading east of the Descent Temple is a no-go for now. There is a fairly difficult encounter over there, especially if approached from the west direction. One option would be to cross the rubble here with an athletics check and clear this area, along with the goals further up. That would be just enough experience to reach level 7. The alternative would be to leave the market square, do the Neo encounter, and then head back to the Blackwing library. Neo's fight is fairly manageable, and Blackwing offers a fair amount of non-combat experience. I decide to go with the first option, mainly because it is nearby and we still have our buffs active. One important thing not to forget is delay poison, since there are dredges here. In fact, I actually did forget it earlier. This footage is after I lead-up reload, as someone observant might have noticed, based on the combat log bottom right. I also used my second might summon here. It accomplishes absolutely nothing. The important target to focus first is the Abricandilu, as it may retarget onto my main character. The dredges will not. We also pick up a bit more experience from skill checks and such along the way. At this point, we are getting very close to level 7. And there it is. Now that we are level 7, our dog increases in size from medium to large, which means we can finally mount it. Or, well, we could, except enlarged person has also made us large. Luckily, that buff expires before the others. It should be getting close. Time for some actual combat. If you did not already know, Wormblacks will not use inflict wounds while you are in melee range. so we generally want to close the distance against them as quickly as possible. The same applies to the wizards, which all makes approaching this encounter from this side much preferable to the alternative. Once our buffs expire, we will probably rest and leave the market square for the time being. At that point, we gain access to our level 3 spells and our single level 4 spell slot. Before ending the video though, I want to highlight a potential pitfall with mounted characters. Here we are fighting a shear. Its regular Bardi's attack expectedly targets our dog. But then it moves in and uses its core attack on the main character instead. This is not unusual for creatures with secondary attacks. Those attacks can sometimes target a different random enemy within range, rather than the creature's primary target. Fortunately, the Seer's core attack is relatively weak and does not inflict any dangerous status effects. There is, however, a more concerning example: ghouls. When I played a mounted character a few years ago, I noticed that the ghoul pit ghouls in the Dresden Citadel seem to follow similar targeting rules. Their bite could target the rider rather than the mount. And because it inflicts paralysis, this could forcefully dismount the main character and lead to a very quick death. I tested this behavior with the ghouls in the market square, and these at least consistently target the dogs with all attacks. Unfortunately, I do not have a convenient save near the ghoul pit in Dresden Citadel, to test whether those ghouls still behave the same way. I relied a bit too much on autosaves instead of manual saves, to my regret.